assumptions like that, but when you look at that purchase and then you look at the plans that are involved in that, I mean, what they actually plan to do is make Skype a worldwide mobile network and then give you a free handheld media device. You know, think of the controls. You could colloquialise voting, media on that subject. So someone who lives in England might not even know what's going on in Germany, but if it's presented in a certain way, we'll offer a referendum opinion on it. This is do as you like Reagan, and this is where we're all going.
Not good.
Well, no.
What is the way, so what is the way out? I mean, resistance is futile or something like this. I mean, as long as it is violent, it's counterproductive. So what can we do?
Well, the reason violence is counterproductive is because it's exactly what they want you to do, because then they can meet that with that and deal with you outright. So, you know, you've got people that are going to stand there with their guns. Well, you know, they've got aeroplanes with gas canisters underneath them. So let's put that to one side because it's just illogical thinking. So we'll put that to one side. Plus, you know, if you start making energy so expensive and various other things, and then you get right down to medical supplies. All right, so let's put the I'm going to stand alone stuff to one side for the moment, not to upset them all, but there you go. I don't take that as serious. Also, it gives them the opportunity to actually meet false with false. There is things you can do. You are past the line, yes. 12 o'clock in the bacteria bottle has been met. You know, we're multiplying past that now. So yes, there is things you can do. Countermeasures. Any military tactician will talk to you about countermeasures. It's not about winning, it's about staying level. It's about keeping head above water so you can still see. And that's the kind of position you're in, and you can do that. But the problem is, one of the main ways to do that is to fight fire with fire, you could say. So you use media. You make a fire break with your own free media. But the problem with that is you're immediately thrown in with all the other fishes, and who's going to look at you and why. So you know, that's the first reason for apathy. And these snowballs are thrown at you on every rung of the ladder. And what you've got to actually do is do the boring stuff. You know, standing on the edge of a mountain, looking out wistfully with your hand to your brow with your gun on your back is all fine and good. But the people that are actually going to win the day are the people that are going to sit down and keep filling the forms out and won't go away, and doing it from their own home. And they can do that on the internet. If people would realise that really all they have to do is as simple as this. Really all you have to do is all sign on one place at once and put a very simple question up about a certain very basic issue and ask for a yes or a no. If you get 40 million people do that, that can't be ignored in any way, shape or form. And as soon as those numbers start equalising, because you do outnumber them by, well, I think it's about 20%. They're about 20% of the population, really, if you put it right across the board, people that benefit from the elitist attitude. So majorly outnumbered. Unfortunately, they've got all the money and all the armies, so, you know, and all the governments in their pocket. So you are hopelessly outgunned in that respect. But as a majority, if you stand up and say no about a certain particular thing, and that equals up the tables quite a lot, because it's the disorganisation that's promoted, the prejudice, the boundaries, the borders, you know, anything that causes sectarianism, that is pushed and money's put into it. Any group that will cause unrest and money's put into it. I mean, it's how, you know, it's one of the first ways that I got into this whole thing. I was, you know, a yobbo, and I was asked to go with a friend of mine and get in a van in the middle of the night to be somewhere at 6 o'clock in the morning to cause trouble in a peaceful protest, and I got 50 quid and a gram of Charlie for doing it. And I did that for a while and realised, well, where's this money coming? Who's giving me the 50 quid? Me being me, so I started looking up the scale, and that's what they look for, that kind of initiative, and that's why I was, you know, it's another one of the reasons I was picked on, you see. So yeah, if you can get one amount of people, it doesn't even, just say 10,000 people, and it's a really emotive subject, like, you know, let's think of one, paying tax, for instance. Or let's go for something really obvious like national insurance. Well, we've got national insurance here, which is like a health tax, and I know there's various forms of this in all different countries and so on, and it's exorbitant because and the irony is that you end up being You pay for something that you can't actually, they wiggle out of in any way, shape or form they can. If you voted that you didn't want to pay that anymore and you want to pay someone when you go to the hospital, i.e. instead of paying $400 a month, you'll pay $400 if you have to go to the hospital once a year or pay your way or something. If you just wanted that option, that's all. You can't. You haven't got that option. If it's not put in a referendum, you haven't got it. But if 10,000 people stood together and say, did you think this way? And everyone says, almost unanimously or 80% that yes, they want to opt out of that. Other people look at that. But what you've got to do is you've got to figure out a way of putting that into a media form that is changing and interesting to watch. And that's really what this site was about. It was about getting a group of people together, not a forum. It just so happened that the forum software, which I came across through Avalon and so on, is a good way for people to talk, and they can put up their own media and discuss lots of things. So it's like having an office. So that seemed a good way to go about it. So this forum was put up to design another website. And the A team were picked and all that rubbish. We went through all that rubbish where people tried to make it into something it wasn't, when really it was just 18 people, 9 of each sex, to help this be facilitated put together. So I knew damn well I couldn't do it on my own, and didn't want to go to the places that I've been before, because when I was in the media industry, I could throw money. I could have gone. I had an office block in London, so I could have put a floor of that and staffed that with who I needed to staff it with, and done it that way. But I would have ended up in the same situation as everything else is. So I needed some people that could free think and aren't really controllable, and aren't really motivated by money, motivated by something else. And the only way to attract that kind of person is to put that out, which goes back to compassion, which we were talking about earlier on. So it's what signal you put out. So first we annoyed everybody, and then I sifted through everybody for that 3% of people that could help show the discernment and the control of character to keep ourselves calm, under fire, under duress by nasty people in a boardroom, and stand their own without losing their temper. And they're rare, those people. And that's why I've run people through the gauntlet I've run them through, to see who can do that. And you can see the effectiveness of it if you look what's happened in the past. They spiral off. They spiral off, or they don't. They stay. You guys have all had dealings with me. Have I done anything dodgy that you know of?
No, but you've certainly put me through some. I never thought I'd go through this. Compassion certainly doesn't necessarily breed friends.
No, it's funny that, isn't it?
It's insane. You think you're doing the right thing, you are doing the right thing, and people hate you for it.
Well, compassion, if you're really compassionate towards someone, surely you're an enemy of that person's oppressor. So there's an example of compassion causing aggression.
Thank you, got it.
So, these games are played, and all I did was just upset those games. And it's funny because people gave me examples of those kind of insular little acts that they do on the forum, in the 18, and so on. And all I did was stand still and watch them eat their own arm. That's basically what those people always do. And that's what they've done, and they'll continue to do so. And they go on a big arc, and they go out, they go in a big circle, and depending on who the person is, how big the circle before they come back. And they all come back one by one, either to have a go or to apologise, etc. And this is the circumferences that people go on. And you've just got to stand still and push the right buttons. And they either come back with a conclusion that helps them, or they just keep going round. So that's what I've been doing. And it's just basically to get some people together that was, the war horse that can stand there with the bombs going off and not get skittish. That's really what it's been. And I think the people in the staff now on this site understand that implicitly, have cracked on with what they're doing. We've got bank account now and all these sorts of things. And I'm by no way means in charge of anything. Everyone knows that. Anyone in here knows that. Yeah, I've got a big mouth and so on, but you're all well capable of standing up and standing toe to toe, which is precisely what I wanted. Precisely, which is no good because I just would end up railroading everything again. Now, it turns to the fact that I'm going to step out of it and only be a voter anyway. But what I can do is point you in the right direction. It's very easy. If you give me a subject or you show me something that you've been studying, say the oil industry in Africa, for instance. Now, I know quite a lot about that because of people that I know there and so on. And so that's probably a bad example. But you can show me the facts about something and show me the culprits, and I can definitely tell you who they're alleged to and who their ultimate allegiances are to. Because as soon as someone comes on the internet, I mean, one of the biggest ways I spot a fraud who says they know what they're talking about, because they all came to me one by one. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and I played along for a little while and then told them to fuck off, because I just wanted to see if they were real or not. And to do that, you have to converse with someone. And as soon as they start mentioning borders and governments and countries, I know where they are on the pay grade. And they haven't actually got a clue what they're talking about. They know precisely what they're talking about in the tier they're in, and they're very knowledgeable about it. But as soon as they realise there's any above, they feel their ego jumps in and they start saying, well, if I don't know about it, it doesn't exist, and that paradigm pops up, and then you get that resistance. But the truth of the matter is some people can actually take that on board, and you can explain to them, and then they start looking upwards and they realise that, actually, that it isn't run like that at all. But here's the irony. You go on any of these websites and you look at any of the rhetoric you see, everyone says that at some point. We know that it's not governments, we know it's not the president, we know it's not this, we know it's not that. So they all know. And not only that, it's logic and it's common sense. If you've had all the knowledge longer than anyone else and all the money, there's absolutely no way you're going to be usurped. Because the people that are under you are not even aware there's a throne. And I'm going to finger these people, totally point them right out. And if I end up in court in any way, shape or form, that's good. I relish that fact, because if you get me in the Old Bailey, you won't believe what happens. I walk to the Old Bailey down the street with a barrage balloon in tow with Atticus 1 Autodot written on the side, shouting my mouth off. So they don't really want to do that. So you see the position we're in. We can actually get away with it. What they're relying on is anonymity. So anything to stop any sort of marketing drive or media event or anything like that, that will be given funding. We've had a lot of people say some horrendous things about us, me being a Nazi and all the rest of it, which is absolutely hysterical because I'm half African and I've got black people in my family and so on. I know it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not a Nazi, but if you actually know me in any way, shape or form, you'd understand how completely ridiculous that is. So as soon as I see those sorts of accusation, I know there's pressure coming from the outside. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's that person, but that person has been ilked, pressured, alluded into making those assumptions and making those terrible allegations, which I will be dealing with in the future, of course. But there's 3 years statutes on these things. They think they're going to go away, but they're not. So yeah, and the irony of this, these people are lying through their teeth at the time anyway about so many different things. And I actually know that for a fact and can prove it. But I wasn't here to do any of that. This is the funny thing. Yes, the situation happened around us and so on, but I wasn't actually here to do any of that. I just watched it all go off, because boys will be boys, girls will be girls, and we saw that. And here we are, everyone's wiped their face clean and got new boots on and just putting that all to one side. That didn't happen. We didn't do all that. Well, the first thing is you've got to clean yourself. And the only way to really clean yourself, as we all know, is to hold your hands up and apologise in front of the peers that you say these things in front of. I would. You would. Because the feeling you get from that, back from your peers, when you own up to something like that, is almost worth the sin.
Indeed, I agree.
So how the bloody hell do we get on this subject?
Because I'm subliminally putting community care on notice on public radio.
Someone else's dead radio, never a good sign. Come on, Bashy, you've got a burning question you want to ask your shit.
Well, today is maybe not my day, but I want to go back to regarding actually the original question or topic, which was compassion. What I think is you have explained a little bit more the anti-empathy side of compassion. So I think compassion. Let's go to the positive compassion side. And for me, it was compassion is. You see, I'm a vegetarian, and I'm actually a vegetarian because whenever I see people eating, or when I see people eating meat, I always think about the animal which is there and the process which has gone through, the feeding, the whatever was there, and in the end, the people, they are just eating it because they are either conditioned by family, or it's a habit, or it's the pleasure has taken over. They know some things, some people have seen it, but they just push it away. So to be honest, I spoke with some people about these things, close people which are close to me, and most of them, they don't want to be disturbed. They know it somehow that they are not doing the right thing, but they can't, maybe they want to, but they can't quit doing these things. And I'm surprised now, if we are talking about compassion, if the conditioning of the people has gone so far that they can't see what they are doing in their daily life. I mean, how will it be? They know about pollution from the mass breeding of animals and the runoffs from the fields and nitrogen problems and algae and whatever is coming, what is connected with these mass consumptions. And still, when they are in the supermarket and they go, the first thing is they go to the shelf and they choose their meat, and I want to make a little, how to say, stand for being a vegetarian, because I think all these changes which we want to implement, it has to start somehow in the personal life first. I mean, you can't talk about something which other people should do while you are not doing it by yourself, And it's not against you or Stephen, because you're coming from a different direction. But what I see is that there's too much empty talk, and the people, they don't even realize that they are not supposed to talk, but they are supposed to do something. I mean, the practical action is what counts 100 times more than the unmaterialized intent. And this is what I want to say in respect of empathy, actually. Compassion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. Understood entirely, but it goes back to what I was saying about the control mechanisms. These same people do jobs that are in a control situation where it's almost impossible for them to make those judgments. They know inside what they've got to do. I mean, but they are just pushed along with the flow of things, and they and their siblings and their offspring suffer if they make that stand. And we're in that position now, and we've been put in that position now, quite deliberately. So you're ridiculed or pointed out in any way, shape or form if you deconform. And it's very well trained now. People will point the finger in the street almost straight away. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, but how are these people going to do that? And this is what I'm saying. I think if you want someone to practically do something, you've got to make that first thing a stand, and a small stand. People got off their asses and went and protested, and quite often do. But they got the time on their hands to do that. Most of the people that really you want to see in that crowd are too busy working in the very offices that are causing that oppression. So this is the catch-22 situation you're in. And they don't know what to do. Whereas if there's some subversive, clandestine way, they can click a button and put a couple of bucks towards the way of making something that helps everyone else wake up to pushing that button, I think they would. And I think that's how it starts. It's an acorn. Just giving people the opportunity to actually make that vote in that way. They can go to work, do that thing, eat that meat, think that way, with a little more, they feel a little bit more useful, like they've done something, even though it's something so small. If that first click then leads you to getting involved in actually making something or doing something or getting involved in staff in any way, shape or form, well then more power to you. But it's not for everyone. Not everyone's a hero. Not everyone's a swordsman. Not everyone can ride a horse. You know, some people, you know, want to, you know, make the bridle for the horse. And this is the situation you've got to realise. You've got to realise if you want to start again, you first got to say no. And then you've got to organise what you've got to do afterwards. So my goals are quite plain, really. The way, because of what I know that's coming in the future. And I don't know that because of any sort of predictive sense. I've got stuff written down and I'm told stuff and I retrieve stuff. I've got like 20 or 30 years odd of processed laws that are basically going to be stacked up and used to net things, which is why I knew what was going to happen with the alternative media and Julian Assange and all the rest of it, which I pointed out all the way through, which was kept very quiet from the public. I pointed out quite a few things to people, and that was kept as, oh no, we'll keep that, or they just basically acknowledged it themselves and didn't pass it on, which I would never go public with anything like that. So I watched that with intrigue, to watch people keep themselves in positions of knowledge already. And these are the very people that are supposed to be helping people. You know, these are the gurus, these are the website owners and so on. So it's just mirrored all the way down the line. And to break that, you've got to do it in a small way, first of all. You've got to let someone first break the conditioning, decide that they're going to do what they've got to do to survive, but. So first you've got to get the but. And then you've got to make people realise that violence isn't the way, and illegality isn't the way. The boring way is the way, because it's the boring way that's been stacked up against you. And they do have to give you the ability. It is still out there in the open. They can't shut all the doors. But what they've done, they've made so many doors now to go through that, you know, even the most determined fervent person will get stuck at door 35 because they've been doing it for 2 years and they're just getting nowhere. Well, I'm saying let's circumnavigate all of that. Because of the way the internet's going to go in the future, quite frankly, you would be able to create a nation on the internet. You could create a legal entity. I've got people looking into it in the European Parliament at the moment. Dee, my lawyer, is looking into it. She's a human rights expert. And she's basically saying, and I'm saying, that I'm pretty sure that at some point in the oncoming future, you'll be able to declare an internet state. And people will be able to trade and be of that state in their political views, etc., etc. And they'll be able to, and then there are a group of people that can logically and calmly do what they want with their money. And if they put their money into a corporation that's owned by that state, and that corporation goes out as a point into the corporate world and makes a fucking mess by pointing out everything they figure out as they go along publicly in their own Fox media industry that they'll have. You know, this is where it's got to go. And until that happens, you haven't really got a countermeasure. The problem is that there is all sorts of technology being developed right now to control you. So we've got the media control, we've got the marketing control, and that's all there to stamp out that kind of compassion and that ability to say no or even look up long enough. That's all being put in place. But they're all ways, you know, you've got to look at the microwave technology that's being used now to crowd control. You know, this is to do no harm. So this isn't a military weapon. You know, they'll put it under a guise of a military weapon and say that it's for crowd control in countries where there's insurgents, blah, blah. It's crap. It's all bullshit, and we all know it. Those vehicles with those microwave cookers on them are to control you, civilians. So why are they developing those now? Why weren't they developed in the 50s? The technology was there, believe me, but they're developing them now. It's a herding technology. That's what it is, herding technology. To herd people that physically group together. Well, you can't herd someone on the internet. So what they've been doing is bringing in all sorts of structured laws, and they are very stealthy. They'll bring in 3 laws that are spread very far apart in subject matter. But when they converge on a single situation, you'll find they're very effective at gagging people. And they are all in place now. That's all been done. That was done as of 10 months ago. We're now in a situation where if you're not a society, which is why we've done what we've done, we've actually copied their hierarchical way of doing things exactly, because basically they all went to ground about 10 months ago and dumped all companies, just liquidated most of the assets and moved all treasures and clean places to almost prove that they weren't ever there, or almost unprove what has been we've managed to prove so far. So that's been done. And what they are now is they are societies as they were in the beginning. And they've left loopholes in the law on the internet for societies, which is precisely why we've set up we have set up, because to gag us, they'll have to gag themselves. And this is where I'm so fucking annoying, because I knew what they were going to do, and that's why we set up like we did. So it looks like all sorts of things are going on in the background, and we're up to all sorts, but the fact of the matter is, what people have got to realise is that they can actually say whatever they want on the Agora, and it will be listened to. And they won't be gagged in any way, shape or form. The only way you can get banned from the Agora is to do something illegal, or, well, just illegal, as in threatening someone or being racist or any of that sort of crap. Obviously those sort of idiots are, very quickly dealt with. That's about the only thing you can't do, though. Your opinion's your own. If we can teach people to look up instead of across and stop arguing with each other, then actually teach is the wrong word, that's condescending. If we can ring things that they really need to look at and what's really important, then they start to come together at the common goal, and that's why the spoon is stuck in the pot and stirred on a regular basis with everybody, including this community, even as small as it is. There are people on a salary in this community, several of them. I know them, but I know that for a fact, actually for a fact. One of them I know, so, but I'm not here to finger any individuals. What I'm here to do is literally partake in what you want to do. But the first thing you've got to do is say but and look up.
So I did look up, and here we are, and it appears to me that your site is going to be this new nation. I've referred to it as a higher court of international law, but I'm now, in terms of Bashi's question about compassion, empathy, how that can be used for or against a purpose, just where... If knowing what's coming down the pike, if seeing what's coming down the future, if we lost the war 200 or 300 years ago, why should the average person have hope?
Well, any sort of, if you take it right back to basics, an individual, their own survival, people. Well, let me tell you a real daft, quick story. There was a chap and his daughter, and I believe his wife, I'm not sure, I think it was just him and his daughter, was on a sailboat, and they were going around Greenland, I think it was, somewhere really cold out that way, and they had some difficulties, and they ended up getting stuck on a really remote shore, which was just hundreds and hundreds of miles from anywhere, and wasn't even on a main shipping lane and so on. And the chap had no choice after being there. I mean, they'd been there for 2 or 3 weeks, things were really bad, and he didn't really know what to do. His daughters were getting thinner and so on, and he knew that if he didn't make a move in some way, shape or form, they weren't going to make it. So he left them 2 girls, and I think they were like 13 and 14 years old. He left them on a beach in the middle of nowhere, in the cold, with what they had standing on, and they had to look after themselves. And I think it took him, I can't remember the actual figure, I know it was an astonishing amount of time. I think it was like 4 weeks. And this guy, by pure luck, managed to get picked up by some cannons or someone. Got back, found them, thinking they would be dead because of the time it's been. And they found them alive. And when they asked those 2 girls why they were still alive, their answer was, well, because Dad told us to stay alive. So they didn't have the option of not hoping and not being able to do something, so they stayed alive against all odds. And I think if you take that in its essence and apply it to what you're saying, yes, you have lost, but you can't give up hope in this respect, and there's a very good reason not to give up hope in this respect, because things do work out for the human race to a fashion in the end. It's the transition that's the problem, and how painful it is, and how painful it doesn't have to be quite as painful, because we're heading for a geopolitical, financial mess within the next 6 or 7 years. And if people aren't prepared in some way, shape or form, yes, well then they can give up and go and put a 9 mil through their head straight right now, metaphorically speaking, of course. But no, there are ways you can countermeasure, there are things you can do, And basically someone has to hold the note for everybody on the other side of the transition to pass it on about who not to let in again. The elite, as you call them, these families, and the religion they follow is about survival, survival of the fittest. They believe in evolution, and they believe that, you know, ultimately compassionless people will survive, and they see it as a religion. And basically they consider that one line is going to survive, and by one line that could be a mixture of lines, you know, but one line ultimately survives. The problem is, in keeping themselves so genetically pure, you know, Barrington Smythe gets married to Copley Smythe, from that class of people. That's how they've bred. You get blue bloods and so on. For instance, the royal family in England have got a history of haemophilia. So the problem is their very religion and the way they did things is actually leading to their genetic demise. And this is a scary instance for them. So if you look at some of the bigger drug companies and what's actually being researched and why it's being researched, you'll realise that a lot of genetic research isn't for the benefit of any illness or anything. It's to do with basically making it then able to survive the transition that's coming. And by the transition that's coming, I mean atmospherically, well, universally, you could call it cosmic radiation if you like. It's, you know, a myriad of things. It's explained to me, but basically we're undergoing where the heliosphere is actually travelling through the ribbons of space. Where we actually are in space at the moment is causing a downturn in things, and these people are not going to make it, and with good reason. It's evolution. They've had their time. That way isn't the way. You know, the planet's broke, and it's going to fix itself. This is the way of things. Everything's circular. So they are trying to damn well make sure they do. And they're doing it through genetic research and so on. It's interesting. I can point you at this research. I can even give you the name of one of the major things that they're working on. It's something called LD18, and it's named after someone. And it's named after someone because that someone had a particular genetic trait that they were after, that helped them with their predicament. Meanwhile, they've got to keep control of the populace whilst doing so. So, you know, that's where we're at with that. But there's hope. There's always hope, because the basic reason is they're not going to make it. A few thousand will get through, but they'll never become a force to reckon with. Maybe in about 1,000 years' time they might be for a little while, but they'll never be in control again. So to a fashion, you can all relax. But what I'm more concerned about is the here and now and the people standing around me. And we're going to go through the mill, big time. We're going to see the action. We're going to see what happens. It's this. The people that are living in the here and now, in reality, that don't believe in ascension, and someone's basically, the alien's going to put their arm around them, those are the people I'm concerned about, because it's going to be horrific for them, because they understand what's going on around them. And they do really understand that there's hierarchy, and they do know that certain individuals run the world, and it works out that it's people with most money, because that's the energetic signal of it. Money means nothing to these people. They wave their hand and countries' policies change. I've seen it, I've been in the room. Only as a lackey, but you know, my eyes and ears work. And I'm still very sensitive to things, and I know how they think, and I've remembered how they think. I can almost bring it on myself, so I can view situations and find who the arsehole is in it. So yeah, there's hope, and there's people like you. So I disagree, I think there is hope.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's a compliment, indeed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it means more or less you are saying there's a prophecy which is saying the meek will reign the earth, or will inherit the earth, and this is more or less, in your words, the same tone or the same theme.
Well, it's not my tone, as you well know, you cheeky son. It's not mine. It's what I've been told. It's what I've been told. And it was a clever way to get me to say that. Yes, these are not my opinions. I'm not a religious man in any way, shape or form. I've seen far too much of life to be religious. All I'm spouting off is what those silly old men believe. But the problem with these guys is these silly old men believe something that there is some evidence of, which is very strange evidence, and I've seen it. And they've hidden it away, and there's a lot of education in there. And they're also extremely wealthy. So if you've got some guy walk up to you in the street and ask you for a fag and then tell you how it is, you're not really going to take a lot of story in what he's saying, which is a bit stupid, but that's actually true. But when you've got someone who's pulled up in an 800 grand Maybach and says, get in this car and I'll show you how it works, and then takes you somewhere and shows you this sort of shit, you do take them seriously. So yes, I take them seriously, and what they take seriously is this myth and religion, and all myth and religion, stories, fables, politics, everything, comes from this original text. And these texts aren't even able to be read. There's only one line of people in that group of people that can actually even decipher what they mean, because they're so complicated in the way they've worked. And that takes us very nicely segue back onto that emblic language, because it's very difficult and a lot of people didn't really understand what I was trying to say. And I don't really understand it either, because as I said, I was an observer. I was someone that kept his eyes and ears open, played dumb to get wise, and the chap I worked for realised that and basically educated me far more than he should have done, and then gave me something to run away with. And that's where this all started. And if you actually look for any belief or truth in anything I've said, if you look at the dates when I appeared and when I said they went under, and that council went under, you'll see that's when really all the real political trouble started and the real unrest started to happen. And it's also due to the hemisphere and the way we're going in, to the place in space we're going into, so I'm told. But yeah, all old teachings, not